Welcome to the latest edition and episode of Spirit in a Material World. I am your host, Jana Zinzi, and I'm so excited to be here today with such an amazing being in the world, my spiritual sister, just a deeply brilliant artist and entrepreneur, Ifátùmínínú Bamgbàlà Arẹ, the head revolutionary in charge of A Black Creatives Guide. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. So grateful.
I'm so glad to be here with you today, and really wanted to talk more about the amazing work that you're doing with A Black Creatives Guide. You and I met doing some fun artist playtime together with the New Orleans Baby Doll ladies, dancing together for Mardi Gras, and really just connected on so many things. To me, you bring this kind of what the spirit of the show is, this connections of travel and art and spirit together. So I'd love to hear more about A Black Creatives Guide. I really want to let folks know what you're doing because we have such a deep love, a shared love for art, especially here in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So A Black Creatives Guide, first off, we are for the global liberation of Black people, okay?
Okay.
And we do that through arts and culture. And so we do that by helping to create layers of access to art for Black people. And I say this because we already know that we're art. Like, that's just naturally how we show up in the world. On our worst days, we walk a certain way, we have so many things intertwined in our culture that are art, period. But there also can be this lack of access to the quote unquote art world. And so what that looks like as an artist, right? For artists who are looking for help navigating the art world, we provide space, knowledge, resources to help artists navigate the art world. And then what that looks like on a community front is that we get rid of certain barriers to help people be able to go into museum spaces, go into gallery spaces. We have conversations about art in a way that is not pretentious, that's very relaxed. And we are like really just how you and I are talking right here, like that is how we essentially talk about art. And so we have been servicing our community since 2019, and very, very grateful to do so.
It's so wonderful. And I'm curious what inspired you to start A Black Creatives Guide? I know that you're an artist and you've worked in some interesting art spaces throughout your career. So tell us a little bit more about, on multiple levels, what was the impetus to start this type of organization?
That's a great question. Yes, I've worked in many art spaces, museums, I've worked in organizations, nonprofits. And one thing I feel like for me that even though like New Orleans is such a Black city, right? And I've worked in art spaces, not just in New Orleans, but around the world. But one of the things that is very, very apparent to me is that we're oftentimes not, like, we don't feel comfortable in those spaces, or people try to exploit us. And sometimes we get so excited to have a seat at the table that we don't see that they're exploiting us. I know that being at a museum is like, it can be like a school, right? Depending on your level of comfort that you've had previously, or like how you move through the world, period, it can be a very intimidating thing to walk into a museum or a gallery. And so how do you make these institutions more accessible? At the time that I started Black Creatives Guide, I was working specifically at a museum, and I could see that community members weren't always comfortable coming in. I can see that they weren't always treated well coming in. I can see that I was not always treated well as an employee. There was also this level of hierarchy there. I worked in the education department. And, you know, I wasn't a curator. And so there was almost like this level, it was almost like in a high school, how like the jocks and the cheerleaders are like top tier and, you know, everybody else is beneath them. That's how it felt to me, even though, you know, part of my job was to bring in the public, to bring in families, to bring in, you know, students, children, you know, and it's like, why is it that we're not feeling comfortable in this space? And so I wanted to undo that and make it a comfortable space for us to be in. And so that's how I started Black Creatives Guide. I originally thought that I would be doing this work at the institution I was working at the time. Crazy talk. And I'm very grateful because I get to do this work. I get to do this work, and that's not tied to an institution, you know, and that's something that really, really excites me. We started off very, very grassroots in September of 2019. And then 6 months later,
COVID.
very grown up.
Right.
And that allowed us to do was to, and we started off as strictly a meetup for melanated people, right? So you Black, you like art, come. And so what that allowed us to do by having that downtime is to be able to really get some pillars down. We now are official nonprofit. We recently achieved 501c3 status, you know, get an official board, do the nitty gritty work that, you know, what's your mission statement? What's your vision statement? You know, these things that help us to be a more formalized institution. And it's also helped us to partner with institutions like Prospect New Orleans or Contemporary Arts Center or Diaspora to Africa, different organizations. And it's been in a different way than we've done before.
That's really beautiful. I had the privilege to visit the studio space that you're currently in right now, and seeing it situated in a mall that has like Banana Republic and like Anthropology and J. Crew, and to see this like very explicitly Black space that had images of beautiful Black folks, and then also really powerful politicized images that were connected to like mass incarceration of Black folks and in the prison industrial complex is really, really special. And there was something that I really appreciated about that juxtaposition, because it's like people might be coming in thinking they're going to the movie theater, or maybe they're just on their way to the movie theater, and to engage with that art, you know, just in a time where you're just expecting to be out and about, I think is really, really cool and really smart. And, you know, I also know that studio space is complicated. It's can be difficult to find. So can you share a little bit more about some of the visions that you have going forward for a Black Creatives Guide? You know, and also some of the ways that you support artists with things like physical space. As a dancer, physical space is always an issue, whether it's like practice spaces, performance spaces, you're dealing with venues and everybody's trying to get their money, you know, at the like expense of the artists. So I'd love to hear more about how you engage in that, those issues.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And it's so funny that the piece that you're specifically referring to, that you were talking about, that dealt with mass incarceration, that actually is by a brother named Nick Brayer Aziz. And we have a shared studio space. So currently, for the next week or so, we are in a shared studio space run by the Arts Council of New Orleans. And at the time that you've come a few times to this space, but at the time we both had exhibitions up at the same time. And so the City of New Orleans, the Arts Council of New Orleans, rather, we have free space through them. And we are lucky enough to have had this free space for a a year. We
Mhm.
did our best to make it as inviting and immersive as possible so that like Black people could just come in, feel at home. You know, we have a couch, we have, you know, mats, we have pillows, you know what I mean? Like sit, chill, do your thing. We have a library where a lot of people have donated different, you know, artist catalogs, books of photography, different things to us. And so like, we deserve dope, safe art spaces, period. You know what I mean? And so very grateful to have had this space. Unfortunately, this space is granted in like cohorts for certain periods of time. So it's time for us to move on. And so so we are looking for another space, but I will say too, we do have a Kickstarter campaign going on right now where we are looking to raise $10,000. It ends on April 20th. I know that $10,000 is not a lot to a lot of organizations, but for an organization like us, it is a lot of money. So I'm sure that we're going to be successful. Please donate if you can. No amount is too small, and it helps us to be able to, you know, to create safe, dope spaces for Black artists, for Black art, for Black community members. And so with that being said, to answer your question, not only did people come in this space and just like get to breathe, right? And chill, but we also, there are artists who have used the space for different things, you know, whether it's, we've had different workshops in this space. A great artist who we love, Sheldon Scott, he is a performance artist that does really, really phenomenal work. And we're really excited about a performance that he's gonna have next month at the Ogden. He did a performance artist workshop for us in this space where people got to come and learn about how he uses time and endurance in his art, which for me as a performance artist, it was like tremendous to sit and think about what that means to my own art, because I do not use time in the same way as he does. And what does it mean to like build up endurance as an artist for a performance in the way that he does? His performances literally will take all day, and it really honestly is mind-blowing to see. I haven't seen him live in person, so I'm really excited about this performance that's going to happen at the Ogden next month, so I can. But what I will also say is that we've also had people come in and give workshops on grant writing. We've had people come in and give workshops on what it means to be your whole self, mental health workshops. We've had panel discussions on the intersections of those things. We've worked with Diaspora Africa, which is another organization that works with the diaspora and brings people from the African diaspora to Africa, and had a chance to connect with different creatives and entrepreneurs to host things like healing workshops where there's yoga and a sound artist is performing. And that was one of the most monumental things to see in this space, especially with if you could imagine like how colorful this space is, and like having the lights off and doing yoga while they're like saxophones or different like percussionist instruments. Oh, it just was amazing. So and we also have had exhibitions, you know.
I've been to the, like when you did during the Essence Festival, that was so amazing. And such a, like, it was such a gathering place. And it's so important for us to have those places. Like the energy was just so beautiful. And it was such a variety of different types of art, you know, different perspectives that were in the space. It was really beautifully curated, and like the yoga classes there. It's really powerful to have a physical space to be able to, for us to be together. And I love what you were saying about these types of workshops, because a lot of times I think people think about the art as like the tangible, right? So like a painting workshop, or like, you know, how do you do your settings for photography? But there's so much more to it.
Definitely.
you know, like the idea of time and endurance, like I think about that as a dancer and particularly like doing burlesque. Um, one of the things that I would think about, I mean, everything to me, I think like 90% of it is musicality. Well, maybe not 90% of it, but a large part of it is like musicality and personality, right? Engaging with your audience. But like I would take these workshops that were about moving slowly. And there is something that is so powerful when you're saying like this artist, which I'm like, I gotta go see this next month too. Taking the entire day to do a performance piece is like, I'm stressed out when I'm like 30 seconds and I need to move slowly, you know, because it's like, it just requires like a different level of presence. And I think also like a different level of confidence,
Mhm.
to be able to like take up time and take up space,
Yeah.
um, you know, especially, um, as Black folks and Black women in particular, speaking from that experience of like not being allowed to take up space, you know, being in spaces a lot of times where we feel like, you know, others want us to shrink, they want us to be quiet, you know, just, or at the same time moving about our day, just like handling a whole bunch of things and like not being conscious of moving slowly, moving intentionally. So I feel like there's so many lessons that we get to experience through art that we can take and, you know, apply to our, just like our daily lives. Um,
Mhm.
but one of the things that you were talking about is you're traveling, which is something that we connected about. And I'd love to hear more about how your travels, particularly to the continent, have inspired you and influenced you. And also too, knowing that you've traveled around the country doing this work too. So it's, you know, you have this really great experience of like living abroad, on the continent, and then also connecting with other folks in the diaspora who are here in the US.
Mhm.
So tell me more about all the exciting things that you did, like particularly Tanzania and Nigeria. I'd love to hear more, and I know the audience would too.
I appreciate that. And I do want to just before I get to that, I do want to say that um, and I'll definitely be inviting you on the 13th, May 13th at the Ogden. When I talk about Sheldon Scott and his performance, what he's going to be doing is performing Portrait of a Number One Man, where he actually would, with his bare fingers, peel rice husk from sun up to sundown. So that's on his knees, right? Because he's from South Carolina, and that was where rice was the crop of his ancestors.
Mm,
So he thought about what it would be like to have to do that, you know, sun up to sundown. And his performance is also like he aims to go ahead and peel his body weight in rice, but his performances are designed to fail. Like there's no way he can do that in
right.
one, right? And so just tedious performances like that. So I say that because one of the things that we'll be doing as a Black Creatives Guide is going there and see him as he performs this work. He is an artist where we started out looking at this work as a film installation. He came in and we went to the Ogden and had a conversation about it with him. And then we continue to develop our relationship with him throughout the years. And that's something that when you talk about taking up space, we do that. So you don't need permission to go into a museum, you know what I'm saying, or a gallery. Now, a gallery is private property in a different way. So we actually do talk to the owners ahead of time.
That's
But
why.
you know, but we actually do intentionally go into museum spaces and take up and gallery spaces and other art spaces, and we take up space. Like that is the reason why a Black Creatives Guide started. Was because we have a right to be here and we're gonna take up this space and we're gonna take our time and we're gonna have these conversations and it's gonna be for us by us, you know? And that is something that has been extremely empowering to be a part of. And even when I look at different videos and I'm like, we've gone into museums and we Black folks, so you know, normally it's we don't do that. You know what I'm saying? We bring our authentic self everywhere that we go. And that is something that is like just very empowering. And to have the conversations that we have is just amazing, because we oftentimes have shared life experiences. And so to be able to have those conversations and it not be about the composition of this painting, you know, and it's not, you know, we have what we call conversation starters, and they'll help start a conversation, but we don't believe that we're the experts. We believe that all of us are experts in different things. And so all of our opinions matter. And that's how we are able to just have really interesting conversations about art.
I love that, because it does feel intimidating sometimes. I'm like, I don't have a traditional art background, but I love to go to a museum. That's one of my like favorite things to do, or exhibits, you know, with particularly with my cousin. We're always going to some sort of exhibit, but like neither of us are trained painters or photographers in that way, you know. And so making it accessible is so important. And I love going to stuff and seeing us there, you know, just engaging with work. Like here's an example. I stay with a mug, I collect mugs. But Basquiat's family put together an exhibit, a traveling exhibit. And I was thinking about it, I'm like, this needs to come to New Orleans. But it's in LA right now. And it was, the idea of it was, or is, to show Basquiat from the family's perspective. He was their brother, their cousin, that's the homie, you know, like he's a regular dude to them, you know, and hearing their stories about him, like growing up and like pulling the cord out of the, you know, wall for the TV, and like, you know, being a like pain in the butt little brother, you know, it's such an interesting, it's a different perspective, because again, you have these commentators a lot of the time speaking about him in like this very elevated way. And this was just like, nah, this is from the family. We're the sisters. We're going to tell you about his life. We're going to show you, you know, these are the things he had in his room. They set up like a model of his studio and different things. And it was just such a beautiful way to experience it. And what I love to see is that there were so many Black folks like intergenerationally there. It was a very diverse group of folks that were there, but it was really cool because it was like auntie and, you know, uncle were there, like, you know, young Black couples and, you know, families were there. Me and my cousin went, you know, and so just, it's like, it felt more like it was designed to be accessible. For us and for just folks to come and enjoy it without feeling like, oh, I have to be, you know, all suited up or like some like expert. It was just come enjoy this art and see who this man was behind all of the fanfare, you know?
I love that. And that's what art, to me, that's what art is supposed to be, you know? And it, you know, it is upsetting to me, you know, you're wearing one of our shirts, you know, it says my ancestors invented art, right? And so, come on, model, you know? And so it's just like, it's hard because it's like, when you look at places like New Orleans, when you look at people like Basquiat, when you look at just like the fact that we are so cultural and we are just artists in our own right in everything that we do, but people want to try to shut us out of that world or tell us that we can only enter from this way or tell us that we can only get this high. And it's like, nah, our ancestors did this. What are you trying to, you know what I'm saying? And so I think part of that too is a mindset that we need to have when we are in these spaces, whether we are with someone, like whether we're with the Black Creatives Guide or whether we're going with our cousin or whether we're going by ourselves, like, actually, I'm coming up in here and I want to view this. And I'm not thinking about like, oh, this painting is worth, you know, $101 million, or this painting was the painting that Jay-Z and Beyonce had in the Cartier, in the Tiffany's commercial, you know, like, hey, wow, like, what speaks to me about this work? You know what I mean? And I think about what that, like, I love Basquiat because I think that Basquiat can be extremely accessible for people when you look at his work. And people might look at him and be like, I don't understand why it's $1 million, you know, $25 million. But like, it is really dope. You know what I mean?
Totally.
That, you know, and I love that people feel comfortable with his work. I think that that's an amazing, thank you for that. And I love that his family would take the time to honor him in that way and to talk about him in that way, you know? Yes. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course, of course.
I do want to go back to the question that you asked about my specific travels.
Yes.
So I lived in Tanzania for 2 short years. Oh, and it is home to me. I have many versions of home. I'm very grateful and blessed in that way. And when I lived in Tanzania, myself and a friend of I went out there at first. I was teaching. And I am an educator by nature. And that's one thing that's really dope about a Black Creatives Guide, because I have always been a teacher that facilitates conversation and not just tells you what to think, right? And so when I went to Tanzania, I just started hanging out with a bunch of artists. I myself wasn't practicing art at that time because I don't know why. But what I felt was that a part of my creative spirit was dying because I wasn't practicing art. I would bring artists in the classroom, but I wasn't practicing art. And so then I put teaching aside. I dove head first. You know, I started shooting, you know, I shot a film with my friends. I went on artist residencies. I traveled and connected with artists. I actually worked with a good friend of mine to found this nonprofit there, or non-governmental organization there, where it was all about creatives in East Africa and the work that we do. And we had this series called Talk and Chill, and we would bring conversations like who made these rules, right? In Tanzania, it is a very conservative country. It's a Muslim country. There are other religions as well. Christianity is very popular there as well, but it is very conservative. You have to, you know, have your dresses below your knees. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were covered up as a woman, you know, and just other things as well that make the country conservative. And so part of the conversation, but if we looked at historically who Tanzania was before colonization, like, who made these rules that we do have to be covered up? Because actually that's not pre-colonization. Tanzania didn't look like that, right? We also would have conversations like the use of the N-word, which was a very powerful conversation to have as a African of the diaspora, to be in Africa and to hear our brothers and sisters use that word. How painful it's painful when I hear it here, you know what I mean? So it's really painful there, where a lot of people might not know the history and definitely don't feel as connected to the deep, dark history as we do. Not everybody, you know, obviously. And so just to have those kinds of conversations, and what I discovered is that I am a professional conversation starter. Like, that is like what I do. This is me on a regular Tuesday, right?
Yep, it is, y'all. And I love it.
As do I, but I know that I'm walking art, and I know that I myself have conversation, like, people are drawn to me and people want to have conversations, and how you do that. I also have conversations that are not always talked about. Like, that's just part of, people would consider certain things taboo, but we're going to have a conversation about it and presenting the space to do so. And so I think for me, that was where Tanzania came into place, because it was the first time that I started building community and having, like, hosting spaces to have conversations. And it also was the first time where I was interacting with a lot of artists from different places around the diaspora. And it has a special place in my heart. I miss it so much. And then I started traveling to Nigeria, where my spiritual family is from. That is another home for me. And these, like, when we talk about homes, I understand that that is a privilege to have many places that I call home. So I don't want to overlook that or overshadow that. But I actually got to work with a wonderful organization called Diaspora to Africa.
Yes, yes.
And, you know, and Diaspora to Africa is run by some amazing people. The
Yeah.
US director is Chief or Oloye Ifátùmínínú Bamgbàlà Arẹ. And so what I will say is, you know, one of the things that we do is, you know, Diaspora to Africa takes, as I said earlier, people from the diaspora, and we do go to the continent, and there's a cultural exchange that happens. And so for me, as an educator, as an artist, one of the cultural exchanges that I would naturally have is about art. I would work with teachers, I would work with students, and we would have conversations about art, whether it was bringing art into the classroom, whether it was helping students to build altars or you know, write their own affirmations and how to turn that into its own set of performance art, photography workshops. These are different things that I would do with Diaspora to Africa. And so it's, you know, both Nigeria and Tanzania have been part of my own art, my own artistry, but then also part of my own professional development as an artist, as an educator. And then they also have had a large influence on a Black Creatives Guide. So thank you so much for asking that question.
Of course, of course. Yeah, I feel like that's one of the ways, one of the myriad of ways that we like started to connect was like living outside of the US and, you know, talking about these experiences, like living as a, you know, expat, as they say, immigrant, you know, going to other places and what that means as a Black person from the US.
Definitely. And so when I lived in Tanzania, I wouldn't say I was an expat. I would say I was repatriating. Like, actually, like, nah, I'm coming back home. And I think that
I love that.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I was talking with this brother, I think this brother was from the Congo. And so that's where this is sad, y'all. I should have known this already, but I didn't. But he talked about a specific ritual that they would do as we were leaving the point of no return, where they would like walk you around the tree 7 times backwards, and like how you couldn't return to the land. And so when I met him and we were talking, and he was just really talking about the importance of us coming home and what it means to break that curse, you know, that they performed on us, like what it means to do that and to return home. And so I don't take us returning home to visit or to live lightly. And I pray that we don't either. You know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that either. And that just like made my heart just like sad and just tense, you know, like thinking about that, and thinking about how beautiful it is to be able, what he said, and what you just shared about being able to break that curse. You know, that really, that I'm just sitting with that. And, you know, it makes me think about the popular saying, like, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, right? And how a lot of times, you know, we think about it as like levels of achievement of, you know, doing things, but even that, you know, like, what does that mean for our like ancestral line to be able to break that curse? Is something powerful to really think about, and really, really beautiful. So thank you for sharing that.
Man, I would like to add to what you're saying.
Yeah.
For me, whenever I go home, those are probably the moments that I treasure the most. I think that as Black people, they have done a number on us. We've allowed them to do a number on us, right? And there's all of this versus, right? The diaspora versus Africa, the Caribbean versus the Americas, and it's like, we are one. And so I can think of another very special moment where I was on this, I was at this beautiful artist residency that is on this historical train tracks in Kenya. And in these train tracks, it was, it started off in Nairobi, and then we took the train to Mombasa, and then we ended up in Kilifi. And so when you would go into a train car, one car might have been for filmmakers, one car was for fashion designers, and you would kind of just intertwine, like go through. It was so magical.
That's so cool.
And I remember being with these sisters who were from all over the continent. We had, whether they were from Rwanda, South Africa, Uganda, a lot of Kenyans, Tanzania. And we were, there was one brother, and he was like at the door of the train, and he was playing a beat, and we were all singing and clapping, and people were singing like, oh, let me sing this song, you know, from my tribe, let me sing this song. And then this one sister named Wahanga, she pulled my hand and she was like, let's give thanks to the ancestors for bringing our sister home. And just to be seen in that moment meant so very much, to be seen in that way, in that moment. Because I think that there can be a lot of resentment, and it can go both ways, you know, about the resources that we have here. There are resources there, but they're stolen, right? Like the Western world takes so much, and just to be seen in that moment, you know, with my sisters and my brother, you know, and yes, let us all give thanks for us that return home. Like, let us all give thanks, because it's not about me, it's about all of us, and what that means for all of us to be a part of that work, you know, is so important.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so beautiful, and so powerful. And it's something that, you know, I think a lot about here is that those ways in which we've been taught to be dividing, you know, divided, and also like thinking about it from a travel perspective, right? Like, what does it mean when we go visit the continent, especially, you know, for example, thinking about places like Ghana that have become super popular for diasporic type trips, right? For Black folks from the United States to go over there. But like, what does that mean for the folks who live in Ghana? Like, how are folks, you know, who are from Ghana, living in Ghana every single day, you know, what's the impact of all of this, you know, US-based tourism? Are people from the States, how are they engaging there and not looking at things as just like, oh my God, it's so cheap to get my hair braided, and like, you know, like, what are those connections like? So, you know, and as part of just my travel ethos in general is really thinking about those connections. And so what a like blessing, and what, you know, an honor for you to be able to have those experiences that were so immersive, and to be seen. Like, it matters, because we do want to be seen, you know, and it is, at least, you know, like speaking for myself and traveling to a place, you know, like Nigeria, and thinking about what, like, my level of privilege, right? What does that mean as an American or someone from the United States? What does that mean as a biracial Black woman? You know, there's a lot of those, and you and I have had conversations about that. You know, and also just wanting, like, a human thing, we want to belong. And like, it's deeper than just like, we have that human desire to belong, but then when you add like the cultural, the ethnic, the historical, the racial connections, like the ancestral connections we feel to a place, but also feeling like I grew up in this space that's entirely disconnected, and also like enacted a lot of violence on this space and on my people.
Mhm.
How do we negotiate that and how do we deal with that? And I feel like traveling as someone from the United States, I feel like almost everywhere we go, that's a conversation that is relevant because of the ways that our country has shown up.
Yeah.
You know, like even when I traveled to Vietnam, for example, like I thought about that very intensely, you know, but also the like being a Black person from the States and what like Black soldiers dealt with there and how they were received, you know, there's just so many different layers of our identity and then also of our nationality that play into this, and acknowledging we have privilege, but then also being like, you know, in the States, things are like, they not checking for us like that. Like we're not wealthy and rich in the States, but like comparatively speaking, we are, you know, and it's so, it gets really, really complicated. So I just appreciate you sharing that. And I'm so grateful for that, that moment that you shared and that you like experienced that and being with all of those artists there, and that you bring that back here, and the work that you're doing to create those connections here around artists from the diaspora, particularly a place like New Orleans. It's so important what you're doing. I feel like we could have like spit bars about New Orleans, because I always have lots of questions for you, because of just how vibrant and culturally rich this city is, and has been for centuries. But we will close up because I've kept you many moons. And it is a holiday right now, so we have, you know, places to go, family to love up on. But just Ifátùmínínú, is there anything else that you would want to share about a Black Creatives Guide? I've donated to the Kickstarter. I'm excited to see what you're going to continue to do and build, in any way that myself and WanderWomxn can support. You know, like, let's do some arts tours, meetups, all the things. So tell us more about how folks can support you and donate to the Kickstarter and just like connect with your art.
I definitely will. I want to rewind a second if that's okay.
Of course.
Because I do want to just address what you were saying about like moving through the world and as you know, as a traveler. And I mean, I know I've had somebody that have a Canada, somebody that's American, they have like a Canada tag on their backpack, like, I'm from Canada, they lie when they come abroad. But I do think it's important too, when we go to spaces and you talk about Ghana, because so many of us have either visited or moved there, especially with their year of return, 2019, and how that continues to be a thing. And I'm so grateful for that, but also like how we need to be mindful of how we move in communities and spaces. And so I say that even though I had a conversation, you know, with the organization that I co-founded about who made these rules in Tanzania, I always showed up, nah, we don't do spaghetti straps. Nah, like I dressed appropriately where I was going. And I think that that's something that's really important. I respected cultural norms wherever I went in the world. And if I wasn't sure, I would either research before going, or I would play it like on a safe side. Like, you know, there was so, y'all, let me tell y'all, I love a good crop top. I got a crop top on right now, matter of fact. You know, but it's not, but I don't wear that on the continent for a lot of reasons. You know what I mean? Is wherever I go on the continent, it tends to not be appropriate.
Right.
Now there are places where it is appropriate, and maybe I think it's so ingrained in me where it's like, I can't do it where I go, so I just don't. But I'm just saying, like, I think it also is really important for us to make sure that we are being respectful of other people's culture wherever we're moving, but wherever we're moving around, even if we're just visiting. And I just think that that's another issue that some of us have when we have not been privy to other cultures in that way. So I just want to actually say that because you know, because it was in alignment with what you were speaking about.
That's important. Thank you for that. That's
Definitely.
real.
Definitely. But a Black Creatives Guide, what I will say is that, and I mentioned it before, we do have a Kickstarter campaign going on. And we are looking to raise $10,000. I am sure that we will reach our goal. In about 10 more days to do so. We are currently right above the halfway mark. And so please donate. No amount is too small. And we are really honestly using the money to help with operating costs, to help us so that we're able to, we have a youth program coming up that's helping youth to be able to tell their own stories from their perspective using the camera in New Orleans. It is a photography workshop with the brother Abdul Aziz, who is an amazing award-winning documentarian photojournalist. And we do so much community work. We know the community is behind us. Please give us your coins and get behind us and give us your coins.
Yes.
So thank you so much for that. You can find out more about a Black Creatives Guide by tuning into our Instagram or website at a Black Creatives Guide. A Black Creatives Guide. Our website is theblackcreativesguide.com. And we are just thankful. You can look for us on the Kickstarter campaign as well. But if you go here, you will definitely see the link.
Amazing. Yes, please support. I can attest for the amazing work that they're doing, and how important it is for New Orleans and really the diaspora at large. Ifátùmínínú, it is always truly a pleasure. We could talk for hours and hours and hours. And hopefully we'll be able to do that more and bring you back. So you can share with us some updates about a Black Creatives Guide and any kinds of exciting other work that you're doing, travel and education and photography, and just being an amazing being in the world. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much for having us. And I know it will not be the last time, but
of course not.
I'm grateful.
And y'all, can we just also give a shout out to, if you're watching and not listening, the fly colors, this palette of Ifátùmínínú today. I'm like, yes, it just is giving me so much joy and so much life. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous.
Thank you so much. I'm her star boy. I actually am a Delta, okay? I know I'm wearing pink and green, but don't get it twisted. We just look good in any color, okay?
Listen, I was like, when I saw you today, I was like, I'm not gonna make an AKA comment. I'm not gonna make an AKA comment. But
I love pink and green too. I ain't gonna even lie to.
Hilarious. No, every time I wear pink and green, I'm just like, Deltas look good in all colors. Deltas look good in all colors. So
you know what I'm saying?
Listen, it bees like that sometimes.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, you are so welcome. And everybody, make sure to support a Black Creatives Guide. And thanks again for tuning in, watching, listening, and supporting Spirit in a Material World. Follow us, WanderWomxn Travels. You know, I'm gonna put all the links and all the things. WanderWomxn is WANDER, women, WOMXN, and you know how to spell travels. So we'll see you next time. Take care. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.